Hey, welcome to week 3. Okay, so last week we were talking about the vortex. It's the only way to say it, you know. And the vortex simply means once people start seeing your content and going to your site, now you can be everywhere. And there's really no point in doing all of that unless you have a clearly defined sales process that turns one of those people in your vortex into a customer. You know, so sales process is like a fancy way of saying that, the means by which you turn somebody into a customer. And if you've been paying attention to the internet marketing world for a long time, it's easy to get tunnel vision here and think that, okay, no matter what it is, I got to have an opt-in page and then put somebody into a funnel and then do X, Y, Z. And that's not really true. So what I want to do for you right now is help you get really a clear definition of what your actual sales process should be. So for example, like traditionally, right, if you're an attorney, usually the sales process is something like someone will call your office, they'll book a consultation, and then they'll become a client. Same thing kind of for financial planners in a lot of cases and other professional service providers. If you're a car dealer or yacht dealer or whatever, or a furniture store owner, people usually come in, they check out the stuff, in the case of the car dealer, they take a test drive or whatever, and then they become a customer, right? House painter, same thing, or other sort of home services industry. Someone will call, they'll schedule an in-home visit, you'll give them an estimate, and then they'll become a customer. If you're an online coach or consultant or whatever, typically, just like we do at Cardone Kern, someone will fill out a form, which is basically requesting you to call them. Then you'll have some sort of consultative strategy session, and as a result of that, they'll either become a client or they won't. And sometimes there's a lot of follow-up involved in that, etc. But the point here is we're just kind of going over big picture sales processes. And my hope is that during our time in this conversation, you'll find one that really makes sense to you, or you will reaffirm that the one that you're currently using is accurate. Of course, with the info marketer, it's pretty simple, right? You send people to a sales letter, they buy something, there's some upsells, and then there's a back end. And the reason we really want to nail this now is because when you're doing your content stuff right, and you're really deliberate about taking over a market's attention, you're going to get more traffic than ever, and you're going to get it from the people that you want, which is great. So you need to be able to monetize it, right? So the sales process really is going to determine what you tell people to do in your content. And last week, I gave you that off-the-cuff framework, which was initially developed during intent-based branding. And, during that framework of content, you say, hey, for more information, go here and do this or whatever. Well, we want to send them into your sales process. So if you don't know your sales process, we're going to be telling them the wrong stuff in that traffic. And the deal is, most people overcomplicate this, and they make a lot less money as a result. So what I want to help you do is kind of come up with the right sales process for you, really based on your deliverable and your method of selling. So it's kind of like, it depends on a lot of factors, really, So like I said, it depends on what you're selling. Price has a big a component in this. Like you can't really get someone to click on a sales letter and order a $250,000 management consulting package or something like that. You're probably going to have to do that over the phone or something. So you get that. It also depends on your strengths. Are you good at sales copy? Are you better on the phone, etc.? So I'll give you an example. Like price, like I said, if you're selling something for 10 grand, it's probably going to be best to have some sort of human interaction in your sales process instead of sending them to a sales letter or getting them to buy without talking to you. And that's just kind of logical, right? And it also, like I said, depends on your strength. So if you're great at sales copy, you might want to send people to a sales letter, even if that sales letter's job is to get them to schedule a call with you. If you're terrible at sales copy, but you're pretty good on camera, you might want to do a webinar or a sales video, and typically, if you're selling something that's not particularly expensive, then a sales video is good enough. And if you're selling something that is expensive, then a webinar is probably going to be the call there. Regardless, simple is better. And this is from 20 years of experience. The simpler your sales process, the better. So what I've done is kind of compiled a list of sales processes by business type and category, based on what I've experienced in my own professional career since 1999 and working with so many clients. So we'll start with professional services. Right? This is like for coaches, consultants, attorneys, etc. Client-based businesses, right? One thing you want to keep in mind is a process that I like to call filtration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through sales processes where we start with the greatest degree of filtration, and then we end with the least amount of filtration. And here's the deal. Here's what filtration means, by the way. It's a nice way of saying making it really hard for someone to actually talk to you. And the reason you might want to have a high degree of filtration is you might not want to talk to that many people. A. B, you might not be that good on the phone or in person, right? Like for me personally, I'm a terrible salesperson over the phone, so I need a high degree of filtration before I talk to somebody. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time. I really need them to be pre-sold, right? So if you're great on the phone, or if you have other people talking to people on your behalf, then you might not need as much filtration. So I think you get the point. Anyway, here we go. All right, so from greatest amount of filtration, we'll begin. My personal favorite is a webinar. So you have people register for a webinar. Then they apply for some sort of consultation or meeting with you. That could be over the phone, Zoom, in person, whatever. Then you look at their application and decide, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll talk to this person. And then we get into this next little step here, which is something called vetting. And this is when either you or a third party actually reaches out to this prospect and feels them out and makes sure that there's someone that you want to talk to. And if they are, then you talk to them. So it's a really, really high degree of filtration there. And this is what I've always done with Private Client Group, for example. So if someone wanted to join the Private Client Group, you can't just fill out an application, then get on the phone with me. They'll see a sales letter or a webinar. They'll fill out an application. I will personally look at it. Natalia, my wife, or Tyler from my office will call them and basically be like, hey, are you a weirdo? Do you realize this is expensive? Are you going to be a pain in the ass? And if everything looks good, then they can talk to me. Really high degree of filtration. But my close rate's really high, and I don't have to spend a lot of time on the phone. So if we now go with like a lesser degree of filtration here, you would have a webinar and someone would fill out a little application to talk to you, and then you would approve it. You'd say, okay, I'm willing to talk to them, and you'd send them a series of emails to get them to schedule that appointment or whatever, and then you would close them on the phone. So we do this when people go to CardoneKern.com. So if you were to go to that website and fill in the form, you'll notice we're getting some data like what's your website, what's your annual revenue, what's your ad budget. And we actually look at that. And we only schedule phone calls with the people who look like they can probably be our customer. So if someone's website is, I don't know, hatecrimesecrets.biz, and their ad budget is $1 a year, both of those factors would immediately disqualify them, and we would never try to schedule an appointment with them under any circumstances. We would just leave them be. So that's kind of your second level deep there of filtration. A third level, which is slightly less, is they instead of going to a webinar, all right, your content sends them straight to an application. Right? So there's no sales letter or anything. You're just like giving content. You say, hey, if you want to talk to me, go to talktofrank.com or whatever. And they apply right there. You're not sending them anywhere but straight to the application. You give them preliminary approval, meaning you say, yeah, okay, maybe. Then you vet them, and then you close them on the phone. So the thing we're skipping there is the webinar. So there's slightly less indoctrination going on here. Okay. The next level is you do the same process. You send them straight to an application. There's a preliminary approval, meaning you look at them. Hey, do I want to talk to this person or not? And then you talk to them. So there's no vetting process. There's no third party like making sure that they're a probable fit, that making sure they're a probable yes for you. And finally, there's this one, which is like the least amount of filtration, which is, hey, you have some content, and you say, hey, if you want to talk to me, go to schedule my call with Frank.com or whatever. And they literally just fill out an online schedule request. There's no application of any type, and you talk to everybody. And if you're real good with people and you're really good at sales, this one is great, right? So really, if you were to choose like which one of these would I do, the real answer is how good are you at talking to people? I'm not very good at it. So I do this. If I'm having someone else talk to people on my behalf, a lot of times we'll like, at Cardone Kern, we just do like this, application preliminary approval and phone close right there. So just depends. And then, of course, your least degree of filtration is outbound call, appointment, and phone close. And we do this at Cardone Kern. So we'll generate a lead. Someone will call them, and we're like really, really, really friendly phone people. I'm really staunchly against like that unpleasant boiler roomy kind of thing. So if someone gets my book, for example, or if they download something that's about online advertising, someone will call them and they'll say, hey, this is Mike with Frank's office, and calling on behalf of the ad agency he created with Grant Cardone, and I wanted to thank you for downloading the PDF. And Frank's got a little video component that goes with it, and we'd like just to email that to you right now. And I just want to confirm that this is your correct email address. And of course, we have the email address on file, so we're just kind of opening a dialogue there. And we really do email them something cool for free. And then we might say, hey, since I got you, just out of curiosity, what kind of business do you have? And if they tell us they have an actual business, then we might further move towards setting the appointment, which is, as you know, we're an ad agency, so I always got to ask, do you do any advertising now? And if they say no, what we're going to try to do is find out why. And if the reason why is because they don't have any money, we're going to leave them alone. So if they say no, we might say, I totally understand. That's super normal. It's really confusing and overwhelming, especially if you've never done it before. Out of curiosity, what keeps you from doing it? Is it a budget thing, and we'll just let that hang, giving them the opportunity to say, yes, it's a budget thing. If they tell us it's a budget thing, we're not going to try to schedule an appointment with them. What's the point? So we might say, okay, I get it. Well, listen, I really hope you enjoy the thing you downloaded from us, and we sent you some more stuff by email that should help you. And if you need anything, please reach out. If they tell us, hey, no, it's not a budget thing, I just don't have time, then we'll try to schedule an appointment for an actual sales call, right? So that's kind of how professional services, these are all of your various types of sales processes you could use. And the answer of which one is best for you is really whichever the hell one you want to do, right? It's totally up to you. It is personal preference, okay? So now let's move on to high ticket stuff. So a high ticket thing could be like a mastermind. It could be a more expensive training of some sort. It could potentially even be like a physical thing, like a boat or whatever. So everything from the previous slide applies. Like all of those sales processes will work. But then you can actually do a little bit more, which is someone could request information. So let's say I had a course on, ballroom dancing or something, just to be ridiculous. And someone like opts in for information about my ballroom dancing course, right? And it's expensive. All right, so my content is saying something like, hey, if you're really serious about ballroom dancing and you want to become like the best ballroom dancer in the history of the world, go to, Ballroom Dancing Secrets. That's probably an existing website. So sorry if that's your website, but whatever, and fill out the application there. And if I think I can help you and be your coach, then I'll schedule a time to call you, and we'll see what we can do, right? So they're literally like going there specifically to get information, so that website would have information about it. It might be a sales letter or whatever. And you're telling them in your content, hey, go here, read what I have. If you like it, fill out the application and we'll talk. And this could work the same thing for vintage Rolls Royces, right? So if I've got a collection of vintage Rolls Royces, for example, I might say, listen, if you're a serious collector of vintage Rolls Royces, go to Crazy Frank's house of vintagerollsroyces.com, and you'll see not only what's in current inventory, but you'll see some of the types of cars that I've located for clients in the past. You should know that I won't just sell to anyone. I view these cars as really precious artifacts and works of art. So if you're interested in working together, you'll see a little form there, and if you'll fill that out, I will have someone set up a time for us to talk and see specifically what it is you might want, right? So again, we're doing a little takeaway there. You could also do, and this works brilliantly for webinars, or not for webinars, I'm sorry, for masterminds. And it also is taken from the franchise model, which is you do a webinar and invite someone to come to a discovery day. And then at that discovery day, they will either purchase there or you follow up with them and close them on the phone. So a discovery day is where they physically come to you and they sit and experience a little bit of whatever it is that you're selling, right? And again, this comes from the franchise world. I sold my first ever high-end mastermind using this model. I did a webinar and I said, hey, here's all the ways to get clients and everything. I said, look, all this stuff works, but it doesn't work overnight. And if you want me to really help you, it's going to take us working together about a year. It's going to be expensive. And so this is the webinar part, right? So I'm on my webinar pitch. I said, it's going to be expensive. I have absolutely no interest in trying to sell it to you right now. But if you're really serious about doing this, what I will invite you to do is come spend a day with me and 20 other people in San Diego, and I'll give you some training and everything. And if you like what you experience during that training, then you can join the program. And then during that discovery day, you give them a lot of value and you sell them there. And if they don't buy there, you close them on the phone afterwards. Another one would be requests for info, like lead gen, outbound call, appointment, and phone close. So this is literally the same thing as what we're doing with Cardone Kern. The difference is it's selling some sort of an information product versus a professional services product. And generally speaking, you're telling them to request information about the product itself. So it's not opt in to learn about tomato gardening. It is go here and learn about our tomato gardening program by filling out the information. Then somebody calls them, sets the appointment, and sells them on the phone. And that's the big differentiator there. So it's not a lead magnet necessarily. That is in your content, you're saying, hey, if you're really serious, I have a special school of tomato gardening or whatever, and it's very exclusive. And if you'd like to find out more information on how to gain admittance to this, Academy of Tomato Gardening, sorry guys, I don't know if you heard that. For whatever reason, Siri just started talking to me. If you would like to gain admittance to the Academy of Tomato Gardening or whatever, go to my website and you can fill out the little form there to get an information packet on what we offer at the Academy. And then, of course, someone calls them and sets the phone appointment. All of these are good, right? So if you're wondering, oh my God, which one of these should use? There's so many choices. It's really whichever the hell one sounds the simplest to you, because simple is best. So never, ever forget that. Simple is best every single time. Like if you think of our process in Operation Takeover, it's show people a lot of content until they click to your website, and then retarget the people who click to your website and or watch your content with more offers, trying to get them to do whatever the hell it is you want them to do, right? And so now we're into what happens after they go to your website, and I'm just telling you, hey, here are the processes by which you can sell people. So here's my general recommendation, all right? From greatest degree of filtration to the least. This has worked incredibly well for me, where you're doing your content and you're like, hey, and this is for selling like higher ticket or professional services or whatever. So let's say it's Cardone Kern. I do a webinar on how local businesses, brick and mortar businesses, can get customers, right? And so on my webinar, I'm teaching them about geofencing and list retargeting and keyword retargeting and cool things like that. I say, hey, listen, if you want us to do this for you, you fill out the little form and someone will get back to you. That's the application. Then somebody pre-approves them, make sure that, they're not, their website isn't hatecrimesecrets.biz or whatever. And then we have someone like call them and schedule the appointment and make sure that they're not weirdos. And then one of my salespeople closes them. This works incredibly well, right? Now, the difference here is, because there's so much filtration, you're not going to have that many phone calls. However, the amount of phone calls you have should be very, very fruitful, even if you're not that great at selling, right? So that's kind of why I like it, because I'm not that great at selling. Another one, which is identical, is your content is just sending people to a sales letter. And the sales letter then goes to application, and then to pre-approval, and then vetting, meaning someone's just making sure they're not crazy. and then scheduling a phone call. Cardone Kern operates this way currently. If you were to go to cardonekern.com, you would see a sales letter, which is a hideously designed website because Frankie built it. So sorry, so like if we were to diagram it out, right, it's content, right, on whatever network you want, YouTube, Facebook, doesn't matter. And then you drive them into your sales information, and then they opt in by submitting the application. You approve them, yes or no. And that's real, by the way, and then you have someone call them and vet them out, make sure they're normal. And then if they make it past that process, then you sell them on the horn. Okay, so that works really, really well. Here's how we do it with Private Client Group, and this has been millions of dollars in revenue for me. So I get applications for this still every day, by the way. Not necessarily every day, probably like 3 or 4 a week. And what's interesting, just to give you, just to put context into how effective Operation Takeover is, I never ever talk about my Private Client Group. The only way someone can see this letter is if they go to my website, frankkern.com, which I never, ever talk about in my videos, ever. So not only do I not talk about Private Client Group, I also don't even tell them about my website. So they just find me, they go to frankkern.com, they click on the little link somewhere, I don't even remember where it is, on the website, find this letter, read the letter, fill this out, right? And then they get an email, and it's typically from Natalia, it's automated. And this is after, by the way, they've been approved. So we do manually approve every single person that applies. And if we approve them, they'll schedule a meeting with Natalia, and they go here, they get this meeting, they get this link, they choose their own schedule, right? And then they talk to her, she vets them, and this whole process brings us about $1.5 million a year in revenue. And again, Private Client Group isn't really my main business. It's kind of an elective, but that's the whole process for it. So it's not particularly complicated. And that's what I'm trying to get to you. It's like that sales letter could be a webinar. It doesn't matter. It could be a video. It doesn't matter. Just for me, it just happened to be a letter. I'm better at sales letters than anything else. So I sat down and I wrote a letter. So the technical tools you need to do something is going to be a website with your sales materials, right? So that's either going to be a sales letter or a sales video or a webinar, either way. An application form. I love something called Typeform, by the way, for applications. And then an online scheduler. We, at the beginning, before we started using HubSpot, which is kind of expensive, we used something called youcanbook.me, and I think it's $10 a month. And it worked great. Okay. So that was like a tremendous amount of filtration. All right. And so this is for if you ain't got time to be on the phone all day and you really want to talk to people who are super likely to say yes. Number one, indoctrinate them with tremendous amounts of content like we talked about last week. And number two, put them through a system like this. Now, slightly less filtration looks like this. We got the same content and we send them to an automated application. And this works incredibly well. And then they will either be approved or declined automatically. And then they can self-schedule and then someone talks to them on the phone. And we have used this as well to fill up something called scaling groups for me. And we've done 4 of them to date. It's a group of 5 people. Talk to them every Monday for 8 weeks, and it's $9,800 per person. So whatever that is, times 4. I think it's a lot of money. Yeah, 9,800 times 5 people. And then I've done 4 groups of 5 now. So whatever, a lot. Pretty good. And this whole process. Right? So here, check it out. It'd be a video like this. This is on the Facebooks. Now notice the URL here. I mean, it's just horrible, right? I didn't even have like a memorable website. It was just like a Typeform thing. So I sent them to Typeform. Okay, this stuff, by the way, these I still get this many responses whenever we do it, by the way. Just videos like this, telling people to, hey, go if you want to work together and be part of the scaling group, go fill in the application here. It got 217 responses, and this is what it looks like. Okay, so right up here at the top, see, I'm getting their name and email address and phone number, and that's all fine and good. But what you can also do in Typeform is you can do multiple choice questions. So I'm asking them their annual revenue here. And I'm also asking them if they're interested in actually buying something, right? So here's the deal, okay? If they say they ain't got no money, right? So if they're like under 200 grand or something, or if they say no, they're not interested in hearing about our coaching program, they see a screen that says this: based on the information you provided, I'm not sure we're able to be of much value to you. The reason why is this program's only a good potential match for businesses that are well past the six-figure mark. Businesses below that mark don't have enough forward momentum for me to utilize for growth, right? So they never even get anything. Like, we never see them. That's at the end. Do not pass go. Talk to anybody. If they say, okay, yes, I do have some money, and it's not just because they can afford it, but I don't really want to help people. Like, I don't want to get on the phone every freaking Monday with someone who's making no money at all and try to get them going. It's no fun for me. It's easier to take someone who's doing well and have them do even better. So if they answer properly here, Typeform will send them to a page like this. Now, see where the blank is? This inserts their name dynamically. So if I had opted in for this, it would say, Frank, you're all set. Please click the big blue schedule my call button below and we'll get you all taken care of. And so when they click that, they go to an online scheduler like this, right? And this is just ridiculously effective. I was just in a private client meeting. One of my private clients is a guy named Nick Kusmich, who's genius Facebook guy, really, really solid guy. This is his entire process for filling up his high-end mastermind. He literally follows this to the letter, and it works great. And he has no sales letter, no nothing. All right, so it's pretty good, pretty good. So the tools for this one are even simpler. Application form, like I said, Typeform is so easy. Oh my gosh, it's mindless. And then a scheduler, youcanbook.me, works pretty good. And guess what? That's it, right? Because we're sending them from your content straight to the application there. Now let's look at info marketing. All right, so this is you're selling ebooks, courses, whatever, right? So the sales process you're going to use is largely going to be determined by price. And I'm going to give you some general guidelines in terms of sales processes to use based on price. By no means am I suggesting you should adhere to any pricing of any kind. This is just a sales process diagram, which is like showing you probably the most common and most effective sales processes for information products based on how much they cost. So if you're selling something that's under $100, then you can probably sell it with a sales letter or a video sales letter. And then they go to an order form, and then you have bumps and upsells on your order form. And then, of course, you would have a back end, So like my book funnel is a classic example of this. They go to a sales letter. There's an order form. There's a bump on the order form. There's some one-click upsells. And then the back end is we call them and say, hey, do you want us to run your ads for you? So really, really simple. My book is $5.60. I sell it with a sales letter because I'm better in sales letters than video sales letters. I just do more video sales letters because I hate writing sales letters, If it's a little more expensive, all right, you got kind of three options here. You can do a sales letter or a VSL. So there's option one, option two. Or you can do webinar opt-in to webinar. The magic here, though, that really makes this work, regardless of which one of these three you're doing, is when they go to click the order, they opt in before they see your order form. This is called a two-step order form. All right. And that's what's really, really critical there, because most people who see your order form, regardless of what your sales price is, the overwhelming majority of people who go to an order form, they don't buy, especially if it's a higher ticket. So what I like to do is get people to give me their name, email address, and phone number as a step one, like, hey, yes, Frank, please enroll me in your super duper course. Step one, name, email address, phone number. Step two, and then when you hit step two, it takes them to the form with the credit card. If they don't fill out that credit card form, I'm going to put them in a deadline sequence. And this is magic for us, right? So this is like, this makes this deadline sequence here is probably more important than what you're saying in your sales letter, video sales letter, or webinar. Because like this is what's going to get you the most sales here. If it's like more expensive, $1,000 or $3,000 or whatever, I would say opt in for a webinar, then do the webinar, then do your two-step order form, and then do your deadline sequence for non-buyers. I think that unless you're really, really, really good at copy, a webinar is going to be the best process by which to sell something that's information based in this price bracket, assuming you're not talking to people, right? Now, if you're willing to have human interaction, then you would use any of the sales processes I mentioned before. So this is for selling information products in this type of price range where there is no actual talking to people. Okay. Now, what if you're selling something really inexpensive, like under $100 or so? I'll give you an example. Right. So this is me putting out some content, etc., and I'm promoting my book here, FrankKernBook.com. It is a whopping $5.60. It goes here. This is a sales letter for the book. It's a long sales letter, and then it goes straight to an order form. All right. And so I'm not getting their email address here. It's $5.60, for God's sake. You know, if I got to follow up with you that hard to get you to spend $5.60, I probably am not going to enjoy having you as an advertising agency client. So that's the whole purpose of this book funnel, is to feed my ad agency. But what you'll notice here is there is a little order bump. Right? Now, I'm using ClickFunnels for this. I like this. And they click the yes, I want this button, and they either take the order bump or they don't. And then there's some one-click upsells, right? And I like to have a couple of them. And as you can see here, this, the average cart value here, now I'm selling something for, $5.60, but because I have all that other stuff, my average checkout value is $47.96. And if you remember, when I was talking earlier last week about the big 7, I think it was last week, it might have been in week number 1, about the things we measure. Average order value is one of them, right? And so that's why I'm able to have this average order value. So if I go out and I spend less than $47.96 to sell a book for $5.60, I'm doing pretty good. I'm still making money on the front end, and I'm delighted, right? Okay, so let's examine like another example. So this is $100 to $1,000 range. I'm just giving you examples of what I showed you earlier, like real time. So this is my man Jason Hornung. He's awesome. He'll have a Facebook ad. He likes kind of long copy image ads here, and he sends them to a sales letter, right? And so here's his long form sales letter, and then there's his order form right here. Okay, and I spoke to him about this a while back, and he said this whole process is getting 3% of the visitors to enroll in one of these two options right here. That's freaking good. I mean, that's really, really good. He has written himself some really, really good copy here. But let me tell you something. When I was talking to him, I was like, fool, you need a 2-step order form, because check this out. When I promoted my intent-based branding class, for example, people would see the video sales letter right here. This squeeze page is the actual amount of people entering step 1 of an order form right here. So they would go, this is the video sales letter for my intent-based branding class. And this is step 1 of the ordering system. I had 1,987 people, actually unique. So I had 1,031 people fill out step 1. Do you think all 1,031 of them ordered? Of course not. That's why I had to put them into that deadline sequence I told you about, right? So if you're selling info from 1,000 to 3,000, here's an example of one of my things, right? So this is me, and I'm saying, hey, if you want to learn about intent-based branding, go and register for this webinar. And in this case, it was literally just a Zoom webinar. This is the actual webinar registration page. I did the webinar. I sent people to a 2-step order form, and that's what's important. And then they would either fill out their credit card or not. And guess what? Most of them didn't. That's why I wanted that opt-in page before this webinar, so I could really, really follow up with the people who almost ordered, right? Because if you register for a webinar, attend the webinar, click on the order link, fill out step 1, and make it here and don't buy, it ain't because you're not interested. It's because you're a rational and normal human being. Right? So the second evolution of this, by the way, was I would check this out. I would send people to a thing called kerncall.com, and there I would have a little video sales letter right here. Now, if they click this link right here, so this link's up here the whole time. This is a video sales letter. It's about 20 minutes. If they click this, 2-step order form pops up, and then I'm able to follow up with them. right? So it's just like the webinar, except for I just sent them straight to the sales page. I didn't make them register for a webinar at all. And the reason I did that, incidentally, is because it was easier for me in my content to go, hey, if you really want to take a deep dive of this, go to kernclass.com. There's a 20-minute video there. It'll show you everything I'm doing. You don't have to opt in or anything or whatever. But I knew that the majority of the people who went there would click the yes, I want this button to see what the price was. And now I got their email address and I can follow up. So the tools, ClickFunnels, Kartra, doesn't matter. Pick one. They're all great. Zoom, GoToWebinar, any sort of webinar software you want to use. That's it, right? Now, what if you got a real business? Like an attorney's office or car dealership or whatever. Well, option A is in your content, you can say, call us. And you can actually just give the phone number out in your content. You can actually use something called callfire.com that'll give you trackable phone numbers. You can also drive people to a website with a click to call page on it. And I'll give you an example of that here. So you only can do this on mobile, by the way. But if I was trying to book a hair appointment with V's Barbershop in Del Mar, I can click that number right there, and it'll actually bring up the number on my phone, and I can call it directly. So if you're a real business, like there's no point, in sending people to a webinar or a sales letter or whatever. They just call to make an appointment. So that's what everything should be geared towards getting them to do, right? So what if you got a lot of different offers? My suggestion is A, start with the one that's always worked the best in the past. And if you don't have any data from past promotions, start with your most expensive offer. And the reason I say that is because it's just as hard to sell cheap stuff as it is expensive stuff. If you're selling expensive stuff, webinar to phone call, super simple. Application to phone call, super simple. Or if you're like a local business, hey, click here and call the office. Right? So a lot of different options for sales processes. You probably inherently know which one is best for you, but it's really important to kind of know what you're going to tell people to do before you tell them to do it, right? So that's why I wanted to share this with you, because once they're in the vortex, we're going to be making offers to put people into these sales processes all the time. And this is step one, is to get them, to start. Whether it's go to the website or fill out an application or, opt in to get a lead magnet or whatever it may be, you need to know which one you're doing.